Okay, you are now chair of the commission. That's the fine. Okay.
If I can just make a few reminders before we start, whenever we talk, we're going to press the button down here to make it green, and we're going to turn it off when we're done talking. All of our guests, when you come up to the microphone, if you could please state your name and residence also. If you wouldn't mind, full name, please. Thank you very much.
Okay, and because of the way this podium is and because of my blind side in my right eye, I often can't see that there's someone standing there. So do interrupt me when y'all do come up and talk. No, it's just when people talk to the microphone. And again, so I'm just so zero focused. But so we'll call the meeting to order. Thank you all for being here. Thanks for making a quorum. And the first order of business is to review the minutes of the July 5th, 2023 meeting. I've read them beforehand. I would assume that everyone else has read them beforehand. Are there any changes? And if not, okay, David McCormick has made a motion that it be approved. Is there a second? Peg Eastman. So everyone in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposing? No nays. And just coincidentally, Donna Jacobs just showed me on her phone that one of the signs was just installed very recently, one of these signs that we just approved. So very handsome graphics. And so then it actually shows that we actually, yes, there is a result from things that we do. So now we're going to move on to the order of business. Since the author of the Thomas Tobias Carr sign is not here yet, maybe we'll go to the other ones first. Is that correct? Okay.
So I prefer going with Thomas Tobias Carr.
Yeah.
First.
Okay, let's see if that's the one that we have the most questions on. That is the one that we have the most questions on regarding the quote from the newspaper. And so then we just wanted to make sure, again, when we're quoting something, that the quotation is correct. So, right. I mean, the unusual thing about it is the sentences, they're, just how the sentences are arranged with the two different quotation marks, trying to figure out if they were moved out of order. And again, so, but we are hopefully to get this meeting over by, is that someone coming in now?
Thomas Tobias Carr.
Okay, then that's great. Then we'll go with the Thomas. That was very timely.
5.
Pardon?
5 o'clock.
5. We're going to try to go for 5 o'clock. So the first order of business, second order of business is the Thomas Tobias Carr Sr., the last mayor of the town of Maryville. Again, if we want to possibly do it by paragraph, and if I'm in the way from the paragraph on the screen, let me know. Right beforehand, David McCormick and I just talked briefly about trying to get the same information in there with just a fewer amount of words, not changing the sense. So I may try to incorporate some of David's and mine words as I read it, but I'll try to read it slowly.
And Mr. Chairman, real quick, if we could get motions and votes just on the whole thing, we don't have to do it paragraph by paragraph.
Okay.
We can just unanimously agree without having to vote on
Okay, and then we'll do the
paragraphs,
entire.
and then do the entire vote at
Thank
the
you
end.
so much. Okay, to streamline it. Born in Charleston, SC on July 13, 1868, Thomas Tobias Carr Sr. was the son of Thomas McGilvery Carr, an African-American barber servicing the city of Charleston, and Elizabeth Jackson Bonneau Carr, and Elizabeth Jackson Bonneau, period. Since I think we're going for uniformity, maybe we could say Mr. Carr instead of Carr. Mr. Carr and his wife, Mary Ellen Green, moved 2 houses to create the family, and we would suggest home instead of house. Carr and his wife, Mary Ellen Green, moved 2 houses to create the family home that still stands today on the Ashley River at 1039 Main Street. To try to just make some of the language, maybe try to achieve it with less words, they were floated by barge from B Street in downtown Charleston along the Ashley River and then put together, period. The Carrs came to reside here in 1904, relocating to the town of Maryville, comma, affectionately called the Village in quotes, and later also known as Ashleyville. Is there any discussion on that paragraph? And we do ask, you might have missed when Philip said, when you come to the microphone, if identify yourself by full name and where you live.
I'm Della Carr Jordan. I'm the granddaughter of Thomas Tobias Carr Senior. Where I live, Somerville, South Carolina. I'm from Ashleyville. The birth year, it says 1868. He was actually born in 1864.
Thank you for that.
Okay. And I was wondering if it should say, but it does come up to say Ashleyville, but it says today on the Ashley River at 1039 Main Street. And I was gonna say, should it say Ashleyville at that point?
That still stands today on, so is it on the, as 1039 Main Street on the Ashley River? Okay,
We can leave it as it is.
Okay.
That's fine. Thank you.
it's in Ashleyville, so it is not on the Ashley River?
It is.
Right, so the property is contiguous to the river or the marsh? Okay. Discussion, David?
Two other points. I believe when you refer to the city of Charleston, that city is capitalized. 'Cause
Since
if you
we
look
did
at it,
town of Maryville,
Town of
T
Maryville is
capitalized.
capitalized. I think when you refer to a city, you don't, but if you refer to a
The
specific
city,
center.
right.
And then, where's the other one? Oh, this is just grammar. When it said Mr. Carr and his wife, comma,
Right,
Mary Ellen Green, comma, moved 2 houses or whatever. So those-
so that should be in a positive, and Mary
Right.
Ellen Green should be set
Yes.
off by commas
Yes.
before and after.
Correct.
Mickey?
Second line, you need to say of, or can you just say, because it's the son of Anne Elizabeth Jackson.
You're looking-
You can say of.
You're looking at that one. We're using the,
We're looking, oh.
Yeah.
So, Philip sent,
because that was picked up when so
yeah,
there's no second.
and this is, yeah.
Yeah.
And this is just a little easier to follow, we think. And as a Word document, I guess it's easier to change
But
on the
actually,
screen.
the language is different between
Yeah,
the two.
right.
So those were changed a little bit. Harlan and I discussed, and with the approval of the commission, we made some edits and stuff. If you do not like any of the edits that we made prior, you are free to, say we would prefer the language on the submitted version, but we do have those typos corrected and stuff on the Word document versions.
And as I remember, this was done some time ago. So Dale?
Seems to me that after 1039 Main Street, it should say Ashleyville, even though Ashley River is there, two different geographic IDs. I mean, the lady here is from Somerville. We know Somerville has a main street. So why not put Ashleyville here?
But then that kind of contradicts relocating to the town of Maryville.
Maryville, excuse me.
Okay,
Mary, I'm sorry, Maryville.
It's also.
right. And I understand they're different sides of, do other people think it's necessary, since we're starting the last mayor of the town of Maryville? And the next sentence basically say that they're in Maryville? And the sign is in Maryville, so when it says here,
Still stands today on the Ashley River, because Ashley River goes to Somerville too. I don't mean to make it a problem.
right, let's see.
Would be then in Ashleyville.
Yes, sir.
Should it, or instead of that, stands nearby? Is it very near to where this plaque is going to be? Would that be useful to the people coming to the park? Knowing that it's, but it's then like, yeah. So so would it be comma, the Ashley River at 1039 Main Street in Ashleyville, Dale?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any more discussion on that paragraph? And I'll let y'all read it.
Well, it'll come up in the next one, but one of them where, they said where he was born says Charleston, South Carolina on Mr. Richardson's. And this one just says Charleston FC. Seems like they ought to be consistent since they're going to be close by.
So would you suggest this one be SC?
It doesn't matter to me. It just seems to me that that could be South Carolina as well, and the other one is South Carolina, but it just needs to be consistent.
And doesn't it need a comma after? South
And
Carolina?
if you turn on your light,
Don't we want a comma after South Carolina? You don't want that?
I think
Okay,
it's not a date or anything.
that's the question.
Mr. McCormick, if you could turn off your microphone.
and so do we want, and so we do want South Carolina spelled out? Okay, okay. So any more discussion on the first paragraph?
I'd like to add something. The original one that we have, which is the plaque sort of thing, it does discuss how it came from where Roper Hospital originally, well, before Roper Hospital came Roper Hospital, those houses were, and it gives a little history.
Right, but
to
Roper
Ashleyville
Hospital,
as
right,
well.
but Roper Hospital is going to move, so in the future, that was my decision to cut it because Roper Hospital has announced that it's going to move itself from downtown Charleston. You're talking about from B Street where it
From B
was,
Street,
so
yeah.
then in 5 or 10 years, the plaque would not have any resonance. People would be confused because Roper Hospital would no longer be downtown. To
The
me, giving just,
original Roper Hospital, I mean, that is the original Roper.
No,
right, but
Yeah.
Roper is
the
moving from
original Roper
downtown.
was on Queen Street.
Right, but yeah, I mean, Roper is moving from downtown, so if that it will be planned obsolescence if, like I said, in 5 or 10 years, when Roper moves, it will not be true.
Okay, but what about the way that well, I mean, I understand what you're saying. It is well, I see what you're saying, that it's moving, but it is the original Roper Bon Secours Hospital. But it does say, that it came from downtown and it was barged up the Ashley River onto the land and 2 houses were put together. Does that serve any significance? I think that kind of, because if people go to see 1039 Main Street, they'll actually see the history of how
Well, I think it
things
does,
were done back then.
well, I think it does say it. If you read that, it says, they moved 2 houses to create the family home that still stands today. They were floated by barge from B Street in downtown Charleston along the Ashley River and then put together. So to me, it's,
Okay, my apologies, I
Yeah.
did not, okay,
yeah, and again, I think looking at the screen, if you can see it,
okay.
will reflect. Yep, so basically, I think the only thing we cut is basically saying that they were moved from where Roper Hospital was put at one point. But in the future, the buildings may stand there, but it's not going to be Roper. We don't know what's going to happen to that property.
And I appreciate you enlightening me, and I didn't know that.
Yeah, they announced in the paper that they were going to move from the entire downtown campus. And they didn't say when, so,
Okay,
They're going to North Charleston.
North Charleston. So are we clear on the first paragraph as Philip has written it?
Can you blow the words up?
Born in Charleston, South Carolina on July 13th, 1864, Thomas Tobias Carr, Senior, was the son of Thomas McGilvery Carr, I hope I spelled that right, an African-American barber servicing the city of Charleston, C capitalized, and Elizabeth Jackson Bonneau. Mr. Carr and his wife, Mary Ellen Green, moved 2 houses to create the family home that still stands today on the Ashley River at 1039 Main Street, abbreviated in Ashleyville. They were floated by barge from B Street in downtown Charleston along the Ashley River, and then put together. The Carrs came to reside here in 1904, relocating to the town of Maryville, affectionately called the Village, in quotes, before the quote, and later also known as Ashleyville.
You got street twice, once abbreviated, once written in full. Doesn't matter which, but it ought to be again consistent.
So I think we say B Street. B
Well,
Street
yeah.
is, B Street
Main
is
Street,
spelled
you
out
got,
and
Main Street is abbreviation in B Street, so it doesn't matter which.
good for you. Good eye.
Well,
Okay. Any
I don't
more
care
discussion on paragraph 1?
No.
And again, we're all going to vote at the end. Shall I read paragraph 2? A self-employed contractor, comma, carpenter, comma, and cooper, paren, barrel maker, comma, Carr also farmed land nearby, comma, helping those in need, period. The Carrs were active in the local community as well as in Emmanuel AME Church. Thomas and Mary had 14 children, 7 of whom lived into adulthood, colon, Isabel Rosetta, Thomas Tobias, comma, Jr., comma, William Jackson, comma, Leroy Ashley, Frank Nathaniel, comma, Mary Ruth, it should be comma and not semicolon, and John Wesley, comma, Senior. I'm assuming all the names are spelled right. We'll defer to the family. Any discussion on that paragraph? It's pretty much as presented on the typed sheet with just a comma substituted for after Mary Ruth, next to the last child.
They actually have 16.
Okay, and we do ask that you do come up to the microphone just because, and
I'm sorry. They actually had-
identify yourself yet again. Sorry, since
Okay.
we're not, yeah.
You don't have to identify
Okay.
yourself every time,
Okay,
just,
well,
just
thank
the
you.
once.
You've already been identified.
They actually had 16 children.
And 7 who lived to adulthood?
Yes,
And let's count to make sure that there's 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Indeed, there are.
Probably should put the plaque up to her.
Good idea.
Any discussion on that paragraph now that we're corrected? Shall we plow on? Carr was elected mayor of the town capitalized of Maryville in 1933 and served in that capacity until 1936 when the, do we want to spell out South Carolina since beforehand we just had
Yeah.
SC? Okay, so we'll spell out South Carolina General Assembly revoked the town's charter, disestablishing, and it should be V has only got 1 E in it. The primarily African-American town. Mayor Carr thus became the town's last mayor. He was not consulted during the process, nor were the constituents living in the community officially informed or given a vote concerning the revocation, period. The village, in quotes, and comma, in quotes, an independently governed township, comma, widely known as, quote, a model of Black self-government, comma, end quote, was changed forever. David first and then
Okay.
Dale. Or if you turn on your mic.
Remind me to how this will be presented. Will it be an indoor plaque or an outdoor metal plaque or a series of
Yeah.
indoors, outdoors?
This is outdoors, right? And is this part, and I'm not sure, there's a park design, there are walkways, and I'm assuming, is this early on, Dale, I think we did get a kind of geographic layout of the park, but it will be outside
Okay.
and a plaque
Well-
and probably a bronze looking something like this.
It seems to me the length, first of all, of this entire thing is probably too great. But I also see that there's a personal history being told here, but there's also something of a political statement about the town and the demise of the town and the failure to be notified. And where it's about it's about a half of that paragraph and all of the next paragraph that relate to the demise of the town, the village. And in my view of things, that's a separate message and perhaps should be presented separately apart from the value of Mr. Carr's contributions. The only thing that, as I've mentioned, that political, I'll call it the political part, it mentions him as being uninformed, but nobody was informed. And that can be stated in the biographical half as well as in the political half, and make it two different messages. Am I out of line, or that's not editorial?
No, I see the point, and there are some, as I remember, and I'm not sure, because we started this process 2 years ago or something. It's been quite a while when it was first presented to us. And there are signs that also talk about the history of Maryville itself. And I think we need to be sure that we have this information in one of those signs. Because that's the real crucial history. You're different, you're right, between the personal and the political. And I'm not sure if we have already, and I'll defer to your memory out here, if we've already approved the signs that talk about the political demise of Maryville or not. That would be my only hesitation, Dale, is, if we've already approved those and this information is not in that, then I think the park would lose valuable information. And again, I'm sorry, I don't have that information.
Well, I agree with you. The message should be given. And I don't recall whether it was in one of the other. I thought we'd read that part already about the loss of the village.
I know the
If
quote
it's not,
was
if it's not already done, then it should, I think these two should still be separated and add one number to the number of plaques.
And if I may interject briefly, Mr. Chairman, I believe, and maybe Donna can correct me if I'm wrong, if she knows, that even though these are written as bronze plaques and they appear as bronze plaques, they'll actually be more plasticky in nature and like signage, no? You're not sure? Okay. Because I know there was discussion about how long they were and that we could fit a lot more words on it if they were more
like a table.
would it like a table, exactly.
I would just say that the loss of the political identity is important. And here we've tied it to an individual, his picture, his name, and that in fact it was, the effect was far greater than affecting the then present mayor.
Right. No, I think the point is well taken. But again, I just, it's sort of like dominoes or, then we're going to have to make sure that this information survives on some other plaque. And then I don't know if and again, I'm going to toss it up to y'all as to what we do. We trying to have our cake and eat it too, is make sure that the information survives in some way. I don't know if we want to maybe approve or defer this one until we're sure that the information is, maybe we could approve, what we've approved so far, and maybe the other information about his biographical material. So we wouldn't have to come back to that. And again, I'm throwing it out to y'all for things too, but I want to recognize you at the microphone.
Delacar Jordan again, thank you. Just wanted to say that even though some of this information may be somewhere else, it's not written as such in another location.
Right. I don't think the quote is
It's not
anywhere else.
anywhere else. Yeah, not in anything else. And like he said, the size of the plaque, we would have to find a lot more information to put on there, to fill that empty space if we were to remove a lot of that information. So we kind of did it to that as well, the size of the plaque. I would like it if we could add in the second paragraph, spouses of the family members.
I don't think we've done that for any of the other plaques.
Okay. But that information I think should stay.
Right. Well, again, yeah, I think the children, sure. Right. But I think but I don't think we've
The
done the
history
spouses.
information I think should stay,
Right,
should
right,
remain. Thank
right.
you.
So I'm going to turn it over to y'all. Again, I can suggest ways to proceed. But is it such an issue that, I think it's important this information is told for Maryville. Is it terrible if it's redundant that if it's on Thomas Tobias Carr's plaque, and it's also, because this is a fairly large park. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, again, it's my blind spot.
I'll wait. Marcia Higgins, I reside in the Ashleyville community. And I was just responding to what the commissioners are discussing at this time. In reference to the mayor not being informed or consulted. Is that what you're discussing at this time?
Well, yes, so I think it's Dale's point that, everything else so much has been biographical and not necessarily political. He believes, to go along with the other plaques as well, too. So I think that's the point. Do we do the history of the town of Maryville and its disestablishing only under a biography plaque? Or should this be more prominently placed when people go to see the entire history of Maryville and not put the disestablishment of the town only under one man's name, since it affected everybody? I think that's the point that Dale's trying to make.
It is.
And I understand the point, but it is very significant to the time. And it's also very significant how the mayor was treated and the town during the revocation of the city.
Right.
And I think that makes it so significant to show that he was the mayor and he was not even informed of the revocation of the town where he was the mayor. So that's why it is very significant to leave it
Right.
here. And I really, when we turned it in, the history of the town of Maryville
Right.
really should have been presented first, because I think one of the recommendations that, as you said, we've been working on this since December 1st, 2021. That's when we started working on it. And however, one recommendation that was made was that the information should flow, and what's in the history should also be reflected in other documents if it's significant, to see that all of this works together as far as, our history is concerned. But this is significant not to this mayor because of the way he was treated during the revocation of the town of Maryville. So that's why it's there. And if I were voting, I would vote that it remains there. Thank you.
Sure. Other commissioners' thoughts? Or Ms. Hamilton? And
Good
again,
evening, Diane Hamilton. I live in Maryville. I just have a question for Mr. Phillips. I didn't bring my entire packet, only what we were scheduled to work on for tonight. Do you have the information for the town of Maryville?
I don't have it with me. I can, if you want to wait, I could pull it up within like 20 minutes, but
Oh,
this
no,
computer is quite
No, I
slow.
No, I was just wondering if you had it, then we would be able to determine if it was already there and whether it'd still be a need to repeat it. And I like the idea of being uniform
right.
with each of the plaques.
It's-
Thank you.
I know we're doing more meetings though, so I can certainly, if we want to defer this,
As
I can
I-
certainly pull it up for next time.
As I remember, and I remember Angela Mack being at one of those meetings, I remember us talking about the revocation of the charter and how necessary it was to put that there. But I do not remember this quote of Magistrate Strews, being put in that part. And to me, that is, that's pretty much not leaving anything to anybody's imagination. But I do think, in one of the larger things, we talked about it, being, the charter being revoked. But I do not, again, just repeat, I do not think of that. So I will think that possibly one way forward is basically just possibly to remove that next to the final paragraph, where it really does have the condemnation, the words spoken at the time by the magistrate, making sure that that is put in somewhere else in the history of Maryville, but then there's still the insult to the mayor with, but why should Magistrate Strews get all this attention under Thomas Tobias Carr's name? Maybe that paragraph should be moved to, a plaque dealing with the history of Maryville.
I personally think that it shows how it went from being a town with a mayor to a town taken away and controlled. So that removes from him being the last mayor, and that this town has really changed under, once he was the last mayor, and this is why it changed, and this is how it changed. I think that's significant to him as well, and how everything was done and how he was removed or taken, stripped away from his, authority. And it's the reason why is because of this next paragraph. I think it's significant enough to leave where they would see what happened and how it happened to individuals, as well as people in, in authority, I guess, or to Thomas Tobias Carr Sr.
Right, and so Donna's coming up, but again, we do say in this paragraph, if we kept it, Mayor Carr thus became the town's last mayor. He was not consulted, so that puts the focus on him and not on Magistrate Strews that says that. Donna, and you identify yourself.
My name is Donna Jacobs, and I'm here for moral support for the community. And I'm listening to this discussion, but I'm going to have to side with the community here, and I want to say why. So many white people would condemn in order to get what they did. And this was done to this man as he was mayor. And even though it was a very political statement, maybe there's a slight preamble that y'all are very adept at giving. They could say that, but to leave the historical reference, even though there's attention to Magistrate Strews here, it does create that dynamic that was happening and explain it a little bit. And it was very much a product of the time of how this happened. So I think it might be very important to leave it in this location with this man, associated with this man that was mayor, because it does create the perfect dynamic of what we're trying to explain here. I just want to give that perspective for the other, because I was sitting here listening to this, and I felt like that it does show that.
And would you also, I think that quote personally is so important that it should be in the town. Would you also think seeing that quote again in possibly another plaque when they talk about the disestablishment of Maryville? Possibly, because, to me, we are always talking about not taking things out of context and, and letting the people at the time, basically hang themselves, say what's there. So again, just a thought.
I see your point too, but we're talking about two things here that I think are very important. One is we have a town, which is kind of an inanimate object that's being pushed on, of African-American were people. They also had that put upon them.
Right.
So I think the put upons might be important to emphasize in both situations. The inanimate town, but as well as this happened to somebody personally, as well as the other members of the community. I just wanted to offer that perspective as we're digesting it.
Thank you. Thoughts of the commission or?
Well, it would have to be David McCormick. It would have to be reworked a little bit. You probably have to move the thing up to the paragraph before, so that it came right after the statement that the General Assembly disestablished it. And then it might have to be reworked a little bit as quoted in the Charleston News and Courier. Moreover, it's extremely important. There are 2 points on the quote that I know need to be double checked. One is whether the word "in" began a sentence, and if it did, it should be capitalized. If it didn't, then I won't give you the real thing, which is the "I" should be in parentheses, but I'll let that one slide. And then the other one is, if the last sentence or next to the last sentence came in the same article, which I presume it did, and was right there. It may not need two quotes. It should probably, it may well, if you check it, may need 4 periods,
Right.
dot, 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 in my opinion, because it's within the same article. If it is inverted, then I guess that you could do it the other way, the way it was in the paragraph.
Right.
But it needs to be, and then you've got in the third paragraph, you've got after the disestablishment, disestablishing the primary act, the mayor Carr thus became the last mayor. He was not consulted, et cetera. You might put the quote before you might want to take that last
Got it.
sentence out of the 4th paragraph. With that, the Blacktown was no more, because you're saying earlier, and if you move that up, then you, after the quote, you can then say Mayor Carr thus became the town's last mayor.
Right.
He was not consulted during the process, nor were the constituents, blah, blah, blah. And then the village, an independent township,
Right.
widely known as the
Right.
model of Blackstone, was changed forever.
Right.
How about that?
So for point, and may I ask a question? Do we actually have a copy of the News and Courier article here today?
I left everything in, it's just reword.
So we'll have that, so we will not be able to, definitely make sure that the quote, but I think we could possibly, pass it conditionally that the quote was correct. But to your point, David, I think what you're saying is, and you're
Keep
basically
everything,
saying,
you just reorder, it's
it's
just
putting this
reorder.
paragraph, cutting and pasting it and putting it, they're basically saying disestablishing the primary African-American town, quoted in the Charleston News.
As quoted, yes, as quoted.
As quoted, but again, moving that sentence to after African-American town.
Yes.
Okay, so let's just move that there.
Does this was what I wanted to add, is that changing it from saying what happened and here's how it happened?
No, we're basically just putting all, and then we're gonna finish the thing on back on Mayor Carr himself. So we're putting all the political material, we're not cutting anything, we're just moving it. We're just putting all the
Right.
political stuff. When David's point was that if they're talking about revoking the town's charter, then we're actually saying what Strews said. So I think you can see, like I said, we're just putting all the political in one paragraph instead of splitting it into 2, and then ending it back on Mayor Carr being the last mayor of, and again, I think we can see it there once it's there.
Let me make sure, I can't read that hard.
So, Carr was elected mayor of the town of Maryville in 1933 and served in that capacity until 1936, when the South Carolina General Assembly revoked the town's charter, disestablishing the primarily African-American town. As quoted in the Charleston News and Courier on June 2, 1936, Magistrate Henry Strews of St. Andrews, and it should be apostrophe S, of St. Andrews Parish said, in regards to the charter of Maryville SC, this town, as you know, is incorporated town run by Negroes. Being an incorporated town, the county police have no right in there. Therefore, the white residents are at the mercy of these Negroes. And we're just going to do it right, and then we'll talk about the possibility of the quotations, David.
Right.
In my opinion, it would be a benefit to the white residents of Maryville to have chart, and we think we need to figure out whether it's supposed to have a "the" there or not, to have the charter revoked or not, so as to allow the county police to have jurisdictions to make arrests that. With that, the black town was no more.
Well,
And then is that what you're saying?
I was saying, if you're gonna, at the end, on the next one, widely be known as Maryville, was changed forever. You either have one or the other.
Right. No, and then I was gonna say we bump Mayor Carr down to another paragraph.
Right, but if you,
Right, and then we'll cut the last, well, I know what you're saying, but let's just look at it first. Mayor Carr thus became the town's last mayor. He was not consulted during the process, nor were the constituents living in the community officially formed or giving a vote concerning the revocation. despite no longer being mayor, and then we might bump that up there.
Right.
Thomas Tobias Carr continued to serve his neighbors loyally until his death on April 1, 1943. He rests nearby in Brown Cemetery in Ashleyville.
Is that what you meant, David, moving the village
Yeah.
up like that? Okay.
The only other thing, I think, on the paragraph where it says he was elected mayor of the town, that might be a capital M as opposed to later where it's just the mayor, last mayor or whatever.
Oh, so mayor should be capitalized.
I think so.
Carr was elected mayor, capitalized. So this line,
You don't do that anymore. Capitalizing those.
well, it's like president, you're elected president, but then, you know, you're president of a group, but then you're elected president of the United States. I think that's capitalized. Yeah, let's see. So, yeah, so where is that? Mr. Carr, right? So Donna,
I just called in my resource about the newspaper article. She has it online right now. And it said the word in regards, the word in is capitalized.
great.
And it does go right straight into the next quote, in my opinion.
So there's no break.
There's no break. Let me just double check.
You are on it.
How about a colon? Because that's an odd place for a colon.
Yeah.
You have her on phone? Okay.
It, in my opinion, starts another paragraph in the newspaper article, but they're contiguous in the newspaper article.
But.
Right, but there's no words in between.
There's no words in
Okay,
between.
so- And
there's-
can we also double check on the colon? Run by Negroes, colon,
Is there?
And Negroes is
The charter of Maryville, South Carolina, this town is known, is it incorporated? Is there a colon after the first word Negro? Yes.
That's funny to see that in the newspaper.
Well, she says it's a semicolon. I can't see.
so it should be oh, it should be a
It's
semicolon.
hard, it's hard to
Semicolon, that
read the
makes
print,
more
she
sense,
said.
yeah.
So,
That makes sense.
okay. It's hard to read. I have Ina Boodle on the phone.
Hello, Ina, thank you.
Are there any further questions with that article?
So if we could just, if you could just read it out loud to Ina and make sure that it's so in regards to the charter of and put all the
Okay,
punctuation.
I'm gonna read it out loud to you to make sure.
And if you want to come up here to read it,
It's close.
is there no the in front of charter?
That's correct.
Right, so it's ungrammatical in the original. Dale?
Well,
Thank you.
in that newspaper article, are the words Negro capitalized?
And is Negro capitalized? I think.
In the second sentence. When it says mercy of the New Jersey. Okay, both words are not capitalized. They're lowercase. Thank you.
So, and I also thank Ina for us. And then I think it's in our possibility, if we want to approve it, we can approve it upon making sure that that truly is, but it appears to be. Ina is a great researcher. Any thoughts from the commission? So basically what it looks like we've done, we've only cut one sentence. We put all the political in one paragraph. We started with Mr. Carr and we've ended with Mr. Carr. And we put everything about the disestablishment of Maryville and the exact language that the magistrate used in one paragraph. So at least the political is separated to some extent from the personal. And
What was the sentence that was cut?
instead of basically saying, let's see, make sure. It's the final one. With that, the Black Town was no more.
Yes, we removed that
Because that was,
changed forever.
because we had two paragraphs about the politics. And so then now we've combined it in one, so you don't need the concluding. So it would have been, with that, the town is no more. And we, you got here was changed forever. We can go back and say was no more, was no longer extant. And you might just want to change that was no more.
Does it say anywhere that it's changed forever? or
Right,
that-
right. And that is saying there was no more, which is basically saying you're not just changing it, it's basically doesn't exist anymore. And that to me seems to be the stronger one. If it's changing, it's still existing. But if it's no more, to me, that's the final cut. That's
was
probably
still
the stronger,
Yeah.
that's probably the stronger
That was
statement.
cut.
Yeah. Right.
Village was there.
Well, politically.
It reads the.
An
village.
independently governed township, widely known as a model of black self-government, was no more. The independently governed township was no more. I mean, geographically it was there, but as a,
That would be best.
but it's basically, that's what it says. With that, the village, an independently governed township, widely known as a model of self-government, was no more.
Well, actually, no, it isn't, because when you create it as a clause, independently governed township. Describe the village.
You want to say politically was no more?
So you're saying,
Just speak into
I
the
don't, it doesn't matter, but what you're really saying, the village was no more. but
Right,
that's okay.
right. David, if you can get closer to the mic, the
Okay.
audience,
Oh, I'm sorry.
it's a grammatical point.
It's, if you say the village, comma, an independently governed township, comma, widely known as model of government, those clauses modify the village. So what you're really reading is the village was no more. Those are independent clauses descriptive of the village.
But if you included as, if you put an as in front of an independently governed
That
township,
would, that would.
that
sure.
would work.
But
So-
that, with that, I don't see what that is, because that is not defined.
I mean, I see what he's saying,
Just
that
said,
the village, it
as
would
an
say,
independently
was
governed.
no more,
That would work by adding.
but the
word.
village was changed forever.
Right.
Makes sense.
Right. We're basically saying that the village still exists, but the village as a locally governed black institution is no more. I mean, geographically, it's still there. It just doesn't have a political entity anymore. So again, they didn't, they didn't erase it physically, they erased it politically. More discussion?
Well,
I
mean,
don't think
thought
it
was
should
fine
say
the way it
was no more, because
Yeah, I thought it was fine the way it was.
changed forever probably.
Changed forever.
Right.
Is it possible that you
I
could
don't
leave
know.
both statements where they are? Leave both statements there
Changed forever. like-
and at the,
And was no more? Could we just
yes,
add
at
that?
the end of the political quote. With that, it was
And
no
that's-
more.
So the village, as an independently governed township, widely known as a model of black government, was changed forever. And you don't maybe not even see with that, you could, but we're really saying, the black town really is there. I think it's gonna confuse people if you say it's no more. We're just basically trying to say, that as a political entity, it was no more,
That's right.
right?
But as a town, it was changed forever. And the town of Maryville was still there. It didn't go anywhere.
Right, and I
It
think
was
that's,
still there, so you can't say it was no more. Because the town was still there, and despite the fact that the charter was revoked, the town continued to function.
So it says, it basically the village as an independently governed township was no more. So basically saying as a political entity, it was no more. So its boundaries were dissolved. So I think we're agreeing on the same thing. Basically saying as a political entity, it was no more. And obviously physically, the town is still there.
So
It's-
as a model of Black self-government was changed forever, you can't just leave that there?
Well, we thought, the thought is that was no more was actually stronger than changed forever. And it's basically, we're making this conditional as a political entity, the town was no more. And if you say as a political entity, the town was changed forever, readers could still think that it still existed as a political entity.
Well, you're saying as a model Black government, it was changed forever. It's two different thoughts.
That's what we're trying to say, but instead of, but we're trying to take the stronger one. What is the consensus of Dale?
Can you just say that the village was no longer an independently governed township?
So you want to say the village possibly widely known as a model,
Right,
widely known as the model of Black self-government.
was no longer an independent. Was it said?
Can we say something like, gentleman said, switch it around and say a model of Black governance in the village as an independent governed township was changed forever or was no more. Instead of saying the village, because I agree with you, it does say the village was no more, will change forever, it was no more. And that did not change. The village did not change. Really what changed was the governance. So if we say the model of Black self-government
So if we just.
as
change-
independently governed township, the village was changed forever,
Well, then
or
if we just,
we want to say the village was changed, but not that it was no more.
right, so then we'll just take the word no more and just say was changed forever. The village is an independently governed township widely known as a model of Black self-government was changed forever. So I think that other sentence basically saying the town was no more is probably should be cut because it does suggest that the town no longer exists.
Could you say cease to exist?
But we say as independently governed township. And I think that's, basically it's still there. Nothing has changed except that they have stripped it of its government, so physically it's still there. It's still, so I think this might be a lot about nothing. The only sentence we cut was with that, the Black town was no more in the original one, but that was when we cut the politics into two different paragraphs. And each paragraph, one paragraph ended was changed forever. And the second paragraph had it with that, the Black town was no more. Since we've combined the two political things in one paragraph, we don't need two concluding sentences. We just need one concluding sentence. And, and we're asking, was changed forever better, more reflective of reality than was no more?
I like this discussion. Thank you. But after the quote, you go right into the village and it almost needs like a conclusion, like thus the village.
I think we actually said with that, or thus the village, yeah.
Get rid of as.
Thus, the village as an independently governed township no longer existed, or widely known no longer existed and was changed forever. Could you say that?
So what was that again, Donna? Thus the village.
An independently governed township widely known as a model of Black self-government no longer existed and thus was changed forever. Does that make sense?
Well, we've got thus again.
Okay, okay. Okay,
You have to watch it there.
I was trying to get
The
it.
as needs to be in there.
Or if you wanted to combine them both, you could do it. Thus the village, an independently governed township widely known as a model of Black self-government, changed forever, was no more.
You're saying an independently governed
So here it is.
black township, you said?
Right, the village and independently and this is the original language, I think. Right, the village, an independently governed township, widely known as a model of black self-government, changed forever, was no more. You've got
That's
both
saying
your
the village
sentences.
was no more.
Pardon?
That to me is saying the village is no more.
Yeah.
Right, but if you
But if
word
it's-
it like that, that says,
You gotta put as.
Then you have to put as back in there. The village as an independently governed
Black.
township, widely known as a model of black self-government, changed forever, was no more.
I move that you adopt.
can we say an independently black governed township, widely known as a model of black government was changed forever?
Well, I think that would be using black 2 times in the same sentence, and we didn't want to
Right,
use thus.
but
at the
it's
same-
saying that what it is, a black township, but then it's saying what it was called and what it really,
Well, if it's called a model of black self-government, to my
Right.
reads, it is it is a model of black self-government.
Well, also remember the town, obviously from the quote, had some whites in it too, so it was largely black or predominantly black because they referenced whites living in that community as well, so.
So is there any other discussion, Dale?
I don't know if you lost track of my comment or not, but that would be that you could say,
can we say predominantly black?
And there was a motion on the floor. Mr. McCormick did move to adopt that particular paragraph. There was no second.
Nobody-
though.
Nobody said.
Yeah.
you didn't ask for a second.
Peg, are you saying you seconded that?
So did we have a motion to? I'm sorry.
Well,
Say
let's figure this last point out before we go to that.
Dale.
I just wanted my comment to be acknowledged at least, and that is that the village was no longer an independently governed township.
And do you think this is not saying that the village as an independently governed township?
Seem to be stuck on that and trying to get an alternative.
Okay, so the sentence is, yeah. And repeat the sentence.
Else would be, the village was no longer an independently governed township. You have that parenthetical added about the model of black self-government.
So would it be the village?
Was no longer an independently governed township.
And no longer a black model.
Or would you say the village widely known as a model of black self-government was no longer?
Yes.
Okay, so
And then can we add, I like what he's saying, the village is independently governed township. And then say, what did you just say? Say it again.
Was no longer independently governed township.
but don't you want the apostrophe
And-
known as the?
Yes.
And no longer,
I think that's, if you read the thing, it's on there right now. It's
and no
the-
longer widely known as a model of black.
No, we're saying that
self-government.
the village widely known as a model of black self-government was no longer an independently governed township.
And no longer a model of black self-government.
Thank you, Dale. So any more discussion?
I move that we accept this paragraph. Sorry.
And this is the entire text.
And we can do the entire text at once.
Okay, so we have the last paragraph, and then we actually can have a motion. So we've resolved everything. Mayor Carr thus became the town's last mayor. He was not consulted during the process, nor were the constituents living in the community officially formed or giving a vote concerning the revocation. Despite no longer being mayor, Thomas Tobias Carr Sr. continued to serve his neighbors loyally until his death on April 1, 1943. He rests nearby in Brown Cemetery in Ashleyville. And I'm assuming the dates are right for his death.
Should the word cemetery be capitalized?
Probably. That's the proper name of, yeah. Does someone want to make a motion? Pardon?
Read it
The-
all.
Okay, shall I read it through? Born in Charleston, South, it will go up to the top and it'll say Thomas Tobias Carr Senior, the last mayor of the town of Maryville. Born in Charleston, South Carolina on July 13th, 1864, corrected date. Thomas Tobias Carr Senior was the son of Thomas McGilvery Carr, an African-American barber servicing the city of Charleston, and Elizabeth Jackson Bonneau. Mr. Carr and his wife, Mary Ellen Green, moved 2 houses to create the family home that still stands today on the Ashley River at 1039 Main Street in Ashleyville. They were floated by barge from B Street in downtown Charleston along the Ashley River and then put together. The Carrs came to reside here in 1904, relocating to the town of Maryville, affectionately called the Village, and later also known as Ashleyville. A self-employed contractor, carpenter, and cooper, barrel maker, Carr also farmed land nearby, helping those in need. The Carrs were active in the local community as well as in Emmanuel AME Church. Thomas and Mary had 16 children, 7 of whom lived into adulthood: Isabella Rosetta, Thomas Tobias Jr., William Jackson, Leroy Ashley, Frank Nathaniel, Mary Ruth, and John Wesley Sr. Mr. Carr was elected mayor of the town of Maryville in 1933 and served in that capacity until 1936, when the South Carolina General Assembly revoked the town's charter, disestablishing the primarily African-American town. As quoted in the Charleston News and Courier on June 2, 1936, Magistrate Henry Strews of St. Andrews Parish said, in regards to charter of Maryville SC, this town, as you know, is an incorporated town run by Negroes. Being an incorporated town, the county police have no right in there. Therefore, the white residents are at the mercy of these Negroes. In my opinion, it would be a benefit to the white residents of Maryville to have charter revoked so as to allow the county police to have jurisdiction to make arrests there. The village, widely known as a model of Black self-government, was no longer an independently governed township. Mayor Carr thus became the town's last mayor. He was not consulted during the process, nor were his constituents living in the community officially informed or given a vote concerning the revocation. Despite no longer being mayor, Thomas Tobias Carr Sr. continued to serve his neighbors loyally until his death on April 1, 1943. He rests nearby in Brown Cemetery in Ashleyville.
I'm sorry, I need to make one more change. I read an obituary of Mary Ellen Carr and they did have 14 children, not 16. Please correct that again. I'm sorry. I had already corrected it with the 14 and I thought I made that mistake, but it's 14.
She should still have a month.
Yes, still.
Motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. So I have to leave at 5:30. We have 20 minutes. Do we want to try the next one?
I think we could cut it there because the next one is equally as long. We wanted to try, unless they're less.
I do have some, is there someone here representing the Richardson family? So I did notice, is Geraldine spelled incorrectly? Okay, if you, so in a few minutes here, since it looks like we are not going to be able to have time to approve this today, if you could give us some of the changes, the corrections, so that when we come back, there may not have to be a discussion on that. And again, if you would identify yourself, please, ma'am.
Yes, I'm Althea Richardson Latham, daughter of Clement Richardson. And really the changes are few. In the first, well, I can't see that. I would like, if you will, the birth date is March 11th, 1925, and he passed away on August 21st, if you can put that in there. Then in that first sentence where it says, devoted husband, father, 33rd degree Mason, he was a Christian first. So I'd like to see Christian in the front of that 33rd degree Mason. Also in the third sentence, it says that Emmanuel, located on Fifth Avenue. Fifth Avenue runs from the Marsh in Ashleyville to Playground Road in Washington Park. So would it be okay to say 1057 Fifth Avenue? Give the address. I don't know if that's proper or not. That's the third thing.
Well, we gave an
Next.
address, we gave an address in the previous one. So 1057.
Fifth Avenue, yes. Now, one of the most important things, he had 7 children, and my name's not in there.
Uh-oh.
We did not
I-
write this.
I am, now, I wrote it, so I know I put my name in. It was probably just inadvertently left out. But I should go before Clement in the order that it is. And I am Althea Richardson Latham, Latham,
And could you spell your first name?
Althea.
Okay, sorry, Alfie.
And that was
Mr.
Latham, you said?
Latham, uh-huh.
Spell that again.
Latham.
And is
uh,
Geraldine spelled wrong?
Geraldine is spelled wrong. It's Geraldine. And the middle initial is not H, it's R. Parent, Herrine. That's really the only thing that I see. That must be anything else, right? Oh, Diane. Well, come on.
Diane Hamilton, the only thing that I would like to add is where it says that the area was annexed into the city of Charleston in 1994. Normally we see 93/94, and that's because the process actually started in 93. And I have 2 letters signed by Mr. Richardson and by Mr. Perry, who were the presidents of their 2 neighborhood associations, as they approached the city asking for the area to be annexed. January 22nd, 1993, they sent their concerns to the to the city of Charleston. And then March 2nd, they had their formal request that Maryville, Ashleyville, and Washington Park be annexed into the city and not subdivided. Of course, they end up subdividing it anyhow, because at the November 9th city council meeting, Maryville was annexed, and then Ashleyville and Washington Park by 1994, early in 1994.
Okay, so they were annexed in different years.
Yes, 93, that's why when you see things written about it, it says 93/94. And here is just add 93, 94, that's all.
Should we
All
say,
that to say
would it be better to say 1993 and 1994? Instead of this, I think the slash might, I just think, so we might put an and, because people may not understand the slash. It's almost like the change of calendar. But if so, David,
2 very quick.
okay, and David's got some points.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
In the second paragraph, second sentence. That was probably not an appointment position. It probably was just a position. I assume he would have been elected, because most of the time the precincts elect their officers.
Uh-huh.
And so I assume he would have been elected. So I think rather than say this appointment, you say Mr. Richardson serves as a Charleston County Democratic Party Executive Committee representative for St. Andrews Precinct 4. You don't need B.
Right.
Take the
And apostrophe
this
S.
position enabled him to organize voter registration rallies for his neighborhood, as well as others elsewhere for those who were not registered.
Right. The way that I thought about that, since it's not grammatically correct, you're saying, so this position enabled him to organize voter registration for his neighbors as well as others elsewhere who were not registered to vote.
Yeah.
So it's the neighbors who are not registered to vote,
Right,
not
not
the
the neighborhood.
neighborhoods.
Right. That's all I had.
So, Dale,
Not to keep you too late, Mr. Chairman, but the word "the" is overused throughout. And I've circled 6 or 8 "these" that could be removed if space is important. That's number 1. And I'll be happy to give this to
Philip.
or to Chairman. And then in the next to the last sentence of the first paragraph, it says various things he accomplished. You got street signage and street paving. I would simply say street signage and paving, if you're trying to save a word. Just take out, the second word, street. And I'll continue if I may.
Sure.
Midway through the second paragraph, we have, but not limited to, I don't see the value of including that. We have many politicians, including this list. So-and-so, so, but not limited to, I mean, we're not trying to document every instance. So if the count of words is important, that should come out, but not limited to.
Got that?
Other thoughts?
That's it.
And I did double check the quote from Omar Khayyam to say that it's nor and not. You know, it seems like it should be not, but every quote that I checked, it starts with nor and not.
Excuse me. Because I was old enough to work with my father a lot during this time. I don't see anything wrong with keeping it in there, not limited to. I didn't name half of the people.
Right, right.
I didn't name half of the people that he was instrumental in helping with the election. As a matter of fact, I was put to work as well as my other siblings. We were put to work carrying around, the posters and everything else for these people and organizing the meetings at the church. So I don't see, I would like that to stay in.
Okay. Any other thoughts, suggestions? And again, this will be the amended text, Philip, when we come back in a month and do this. And if you would either pass the extraneous these on to me or to Philip, because if you gave it to me, I would hand it to Philip.
Okay.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Everyone in favor? Thank you all. Thank you all for your dedication. And thank you for, as we, like I said, it's just to say before, and we're always trying to do this, is if it's written for someone who doesn't know a thing about Ashleyville, is dropped from another planet and is trying to learn what they can with no previous information beforehand.
We'd be able to get the revised copy sent to us or email.
Certainly.